Hi everybody, I'm Clare Girton, and this is Around Town. This is a show about the stories and the people that have impact on our homes and our neighborhoods and in our community. And as you know, I think a lot about Radnor Township, and I am very interested in all the things that are happening in Radnor Township. And today I am lucky enough to have our guest, Will Nord, who is the executive director of the fairly newly formed in the last couple of years, Willows Park Preserve, which is the organization that takes care of the mansion at the Willows Park Preserve. As you know, Radnor is really well known for, first of all, welcome, Will. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me.
As you know, you and I have talked a little bit beforehand. Radnor is really well known for its parks. And interestingly enough, along the southern border of Radnor Township, the country estate segment of Radnor has been, over the years, changed into housing developments, other kinds of preserved areas, but we are so lucky here in Radnor to have this almost 50 acres of parkland, including ponds, trails, sledding, you name it. And at the very top of a long driveway sits this mansion that was built in 1910. And you have been hired to take it to the next level. So to get us started, can you just give us a little history about the mansion itself, and then the history of what happened to the mansion once the township purchased it?
Absolutely. So yes, the mansion was built in 1910. The architect was Charles Barton Keene, well-known architect. And the Sinnott family bought and built the house in 1910. And Mr. Sinnott was a whiskey distiller, and he gave the house to his wife as a wedding gift. The house was originally called Rose Garland, and they lived there for a number of years through Prohibition. Had some struggles there being a whiskey distiller. And then the house actually changed hands a few times with between a few different families. And then eventually the Zanzingers bought the house and lived there for a number of years. In 1973, I've seen a few different dates. I've actually seen 1972, 1973, and 1974, when the township actually purchased the property from the Zanzingers. So at that time, the township owned the whole park and the building. And as many of us know, through the 80s and 90s and early 2000s, there were so many fun events that were held there, from lots and lots of weddings to lots of Radnor school dances and yearbook signings and other events going on at that time.
So the mansion was part of the history of the township, a big part, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So you know, once they bought it in 1973, and from the Zanzinger family, and it was probably an economic down for everybody, right, in the 70s, and then the township bought it, and besides the park part of it, the mansion was actually really utilized, and the township held its own and made money, or at least broke even on all the events they held there.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah, I'm not sure of the financial benefits from the township standpoint, but they absolutely held a lot of events, a lot of private events. But also the school district utilized it a great deal for a lot of their functions.
Okay, I did have heard that. So what happened in the 2010s, where what happened to make those events sort of slow down, or what happened to the mansion? Can you tell us a little bit?
So I don't have all that insider information.
Yeah.
I haven't really spoken to the township in depth about that, but the mansion is a big home, and I think it takes a lot of upkeep. And so a lot of events means a lot of wear and tear. And so I think from a possible financial standpoint, it got hard to maintain. And so they decided to shut the mansion down. Not the park. We all know the park's always been open. So the park was still accessible for for visitors. But the actual home was shut down for about 8 years.
Okay. So during those 8 years, and as I understand it, I have a little experience. I serve on the Radnor Parks and Rec board and actually on Shade Tree as well, that there were several ideas, iterations of what should happen to the mansion. You know, should it be privately sold, just the mansion, or should it be, worked with a partnership with a caterer, right? That was one of them. A nursery school, a couple other ideas. But even developers, I believe, so they started to put out to the community what would be a good use for the mansion. And over those years, there was some, different ideas. Everybody had different ideas, correct? So we got to the point, 8 years closed. And so give me a little bit of, do you know what happened with, Willows Park Preserve and what made them sort of organize?
Yeah, so I honestly think it was a very grassroots effort, right? I think, there was a handful of Radnor residents, area residents that just came together and saw a lot of those ideas that you just mentioned kind of fall to the wayside. And they didn't want to see the Willows Mansion sit there any longer. So in 2017, they kind of came together and they incorporated. They formed a nonprofit organization named the Willows Park Preserve in the fall of 2017.
Okay, and now here we are.
Yeah,
a couple years in, and this is a big step. So they've made the decision to hire a director. I know that you were what's the word? Well, you had lots of competition for the job.
Well,
and
from what I hear.
Yeah. And you're the right person. So we're excited in Radnor to have this kind of next step to see it through, because part of it is protecting the township and their interests, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I am extremely grateful for having this opportunity. But like you said, I think it's a big statement for our organization to hire an executive director, right? It kind of it kind of sends the message like, hey, we're for real. So, the organization, the nonprofit, incorporated in 2017 and in over 18. And then finally, not until 2019 did we sign a 25-year lease with Radnor Township.
Okay.
So while, the organization incorporated in 2017, the fall, it took a little while to get it going and sign that the lease that we have now, which is a 25-year lease. Radnor Township still owns the building, and we just lease it from Radnor Township. So that was a huge step. And then, taking the next step in hiring an executive director, which, I'm in charge of the operations and the management and the day-to-day. So I'm there Monday through Friday, which is really exciting for myself, but I think for the organization as a whole.
So that brings me to my next question. So as we were saying, you are certainly super well qualified. And what was it that brought you to this project? I mean, talk a little bit about that lease, that it's, and also what drew you to this with your background? Like, what was it about the things that you have coming from that made you attracted to this project?
So I spent the last 17 years in education, primarily in independent schools. I was at Gladwin Montessori School for 12 years. I was at St. Peter's School down in Philadelphia for 5 years. And I was looking for a little bit of a change in my career path. And when I saw the posting for executive director at the Willows Park Preserve, it blended, personal and professional aspirations, I guess you can say. For professional reasons, there are so many parallels from working in schools, from the systems and the organization that is needed, to the reaching out, the outreach and the meeting people and the networking and the building of an environment and a culture. So that excited me. The personal is I grew up here in Radnor Township. So I went to Radnor Middle School and I graduated from Radnor High School in 1995.
So you attended events?
So I attended. We had our sophomore semi-formal dance at the Willows, and I've gone sledding there, more times than I can count. So there was an absolute personal draw to, hey, I've been here. I love this park. Coupled with my professional experience and my background, that I said, I could help here.
Yes,
Not only could I help, but this would definitely be a fun challenge, a fun next chapter in my professional career. So, the other piece that really drew me to this position in this organization is it's community focused, and that's what we're going with, and we talk about all the time is that yes, we're restoring this beautiful mansion and we're preserving this beautiful mansion, but we're doing that to give back to the community. So we're going to actually open up portions of the home that will be open for all visitors of the park, which was not the case before.
Right.
So when the township, in the 80s and 90s and early 2000s, they would host lots of events and open it up to the school district, but a lot of the times it was mainly private events. So now,
and it was closed during the day.
It was closed during the day.
The vision is to see a little bit of spaces in the mansion that are actually going to be open during the day, during park hours.
Absolutely.
Is that's part of the vision?
Absolutely. There's be portions that will be open from dawn to dusk. So when the visitors come through, walk through the park. I was just thinking about it the last few weeks with all the sledders.
Right.
So as they're sledding, a lot of them sled right in front of the mansion too.
Right.
There's a few great hills.
Right.
But sled right in front of the mansion and to come out of the cold for a few minutes with their parents, warm up, and then go back out and sled some more.
It's exciting to think about what are the possibilities.
Yeah.
And talk to me a little bit about that public-private kind of partnership and how, in the next 25 years, and hopefully longer than that, how the Willows Park Preserve sees that coming together and supporting both the township and the entity of WPP.
Yeah. So. To be clear, the township owns the building.
Right. Yeah,
so as a nonprofit organization, we need that partnership. We need that relationship.
Right.
So the way the organization was formed was this private-public relationship, where it's known that Radnor owns the building, owns the park, but we're leasing it from them, and we're in charge of privately raising all the funds to do all the restoration inside the building. The terraces, the fountain wall, the wishing well circle.
Right.
So all the improvements with the building. The township will be in charge of the infrastructure. So I look at it like the big pieces, like so the sewer line and the water lines.
Okay.
And the roads leading to and from the park, and so they will still be in charge of that piece.
The actual property.
The actual property, yes.
Right. So,
but the home, we're in charge of the total restoration. But the partnership and the relationship between the two, is a must, and we're leaning on each other. So we've already started developing those relationships over the first few years, and we can talk more about it. But all the programs that, in addition to having accessibility to the house, all the educational and health and wellness programs that we're going to be running, many of them will be in tied to the Parks and Rec and working with the Township Parks and Rec together.
Right. Excellent.
Yeah.
So let's go back. We will come back to that. That's a good point. Let's go back to what has been done structurally to date for the preservation, literally, of the home, of the house. Right. So go ahead and tell me a little bit about that.
So again, while we incorporated back in 2017, it's only really been getting going out over the last couple years.
Right.
And so we were fortunate enough in the early goings to have $1 million donation from a private anonymous person that's been walking the park for 20 plus years. And so that really helped get the nonprofit going. And so the first big project we did, which makes a lot of sense for anyone owning or leasing a home, is to do the roof. The roof was in a little bit of disrepair and was leaking in spots, and so we focused our attention on redoing the roof as the first major project.
And that's completed.
So
it's under roof and it's dry.
Yes, it was completed in this past summer.
Okay.
So it's dry, which makes sense. So now all the projects that we do from here on out will be protected by this beautiful roof that will last over 100 years. The roof is
it's a tile roof.
It's a tile roof, and we actually found The tile is called Ludwicki tile, and it was actually the same manufacturer that made the original tile that was on the roof in 1910.
Really?
So there was actually our original anonymous donor that has been walking the park for years found old tile under brush on the property. And so they were able to match the style and the color of the tile that's now on the roof. There wasn't enough tile to redo the whole roof with what was found, but it gave a great benchmark to do the new roof.
So that makes me bring up my next question, which is, over the years, the mansion, the Zansingers made some changes, or even before. So there's some architectural changes that are kind of interesting. For example, the staircase. The original, there's a picture of the original, which is a wooden country house, turn of the century staircase. But it's been replaced with a maybe 30s, 40s Art Deco wrought iron staircase, which in itself has some architectural interest. So how does Willows Park Preserve think about these ideas about preservation and renovation?
Absolutely. It's we discuss that all the time, and it's really interesting to walk through the mansion and see or think about what was 1910, what was added on in the 30s, or even maybe in the 70s or 80s by the township. And unfortunately, there's not a lot of records that we have found that talk about those changes over the years,
or even photos.
There's very few photos. We're lucky to have a photo of the original entryway that, like you talked about, with the wooden banister, and now it's more that Art Deco banister that's definitely changed. The solarium was not built in 1910. Many of us have been in there for parties or dances or events, and that was not original to the 1910, and that was put on at some later date. We're not sure.
It has some architecture that is sort of inherent to those times, right? 40s, 50s, 60s, and the floor is like stone.
The floor is stone, actual stone, which is beautiful.
So there is the intent to keep that, or at least consider it when moving forward.
I mean, so I think a lot of the plans are on the table because we're not there yet. That phase of redoing that room, that solarium room, and that would be one of the rooms that would be open. Kind of, some people have been calling it a garden room, kind of an indoor-outdoor room. So we have not 100% finalized what that room is going to look like, a couple years from now when it's complete.
It comes up in the
absolutely
in the what the future holds, the vision.
Absolutely. And what changes and what do we want to keep, architecturally, and what needs to be changed just to make it safe as well. So there's not 100% concrete plans for the whole building of what every single room's going to look like and what we're going to keep. But we discuss that every day, and we bring in the professionals, architectural historians, and also get feedback from the community too. What's special to them, because that building solicits a lot of memories. For the township.
So that relationship between park users and the Willows Park Preserve is something that I think people are really interested in knowing what that might look like. And you kind of alluded to it, that you want park users to feel part of it. So talk to me a little bit more about how that occurs, and getting people's interest and input into how it moves forward in residents.
So part of our lease also that we didn't talk about yet was we will be allowed to have 25 large events a year.
Money-making events.
Money-making events. And our hope is that those 25 events will provide us enough revenue to maintain the mansion from year to year. It will also allow us enough revenue to provide either really low cost or no cost educational and health and wellness programs. So that's where we will engage every visitor, a lot of the visitors in the community, with providing program. Some teaming up with the Parks and Recs, other times doing it kind of by ourselves. But that's how we'll engage. That's how we'll engage and attract the community, and really, absolutely Radnor residents, but probably all over from the greater Philadelphia area.
Right. And their guests and
their guests.
And
yeah.
so for events, so do you see that Radnor Township will, this will run financially, sort of break even for Radnor Township? Is that the hope?
So, absolutely. We don't think it's going to be, the township will be in a deficit from this project, because we're taking on the maintenance and the upkeep, and so we're providing, we're raising those funds.
Okay.
I think long term overall, it'll be an added value for the whole township, without a doubt. It's going to attract more visitors to the park. It'll attract more programs, right? We'll have to create more programs and events, not necessarily in the mansion, but in the parks and in Radnor Township. And ultimately, the more people that visit the park will visit Wayne, and Radnor Township stores and businesses,
absolutely,
and hotels. As
and it impacts property values and businesses, and it does absolutely.
To maintain that beautiful property and keep it open space, right? The neighbors are extremely excited about that.
I can imagine. I've as we all are. I think a lot of us are. And we can't emphasize enough, the view shed, just standing up in the mansion or next to it is spectacular. And I think we drive along in our cars sometimes, we don't realize the gem that it really is, the beauty of that property, that almost 50 acres of property that will be a really symbiotic relationship with the township residents, park users.
Absolutely.
And these big events, let's talk a little bit about that. Back before 2012, the township had a caretaker at the mansion who kind of handled the events and booked the events. How does that work for Willows Park Preserve? Who's going to be the catering for these big, let's say we have 10 weddings a year there. So how does that
work? So we're researching caterers right now and trying to figure out.
You're going to bring somebody on.
Who would be the best fit?
Okay.
As many of us know, caterers are extremely helpful in organizing events of that size. Larger events. But we're looking at, weddings or bridal showers or baby showers or, birthday parties. Also corporate retreats. Or, providing them meeting spaces as well.
Okay.
So it'll be a mix. I will be organizing most of those. Along with a caterer for like a larger bridal shower or wedding party event such as that. The other piece is, we really like the 25 cap, 25 limit cap.
That's part of the lease.
Part of the lease, because it gives more opportunity to open it up for the community. So the more events that we have, we don't want to go back to a wedding hall. I don't know how many weddings we'll run a year, but it was upwards of 100, I'm sure. And the more private events we have, the less opportunity for the community to use it, and that's the whole purpose of the house. Is to open it back up for the community,
and then sustainable for the township.
Absolutely.
And then it becomes a public-private partnership that really works for
everybody.
For everybody.
Everybody, absolutely, yeah.
Okay, you've done such a good job, answering my questions, Will. I really appreciate you coming here. So, sort of to finish up, give me a sort of a step two of how residents can get more connected, more involved, and residents, guests, and the greater Philadelphia. We're really working hard to communicate all this, because I think a lot of people don't know. I get asked all the time from Parks and Rec and as a residential realtor, like, what's happening there? What about the township? What about people who use the Willows to walk and the trails? So give me a little bit of a best case scenario of how we can get really behind this effort.
Well, I think it's important. Nothing's going to change in that park from what people are used to now. The addition will be the accessibility and having the building open.
Open. So that's
open.
That's the word we're looking for, right? We're not shutting out people.
No, absolutely. We're inviting people in, and so. We're actually going to start later this winter and early spring. We're starting to have some programs, and so that's some way to get involved. I think if you're interested, you can reach out on our website or email myself directly. And we're giving individual tours.
So, is it open for tours?
Yes, we are giving tours to individuals,
Okay.
right? We have to be safe
Sure.
because of COVID.
Right, and 6 feet, sure.
But that's a great way to learn more about what we're doing.
Okay.
So a big part of what we're doing, absolutely, like you said, is spreading awareness.
Right.
I've been calling it kind of the whisper down the lane effect,
Right,
where
right.
we're trying to, open up, branch out, build our network of letting people know what's going on over there.
And friends of Willows Park Preserve, right?
Absolutely.
And it's open to all of us to
Absolutely.
get involved in ways in programming and donating. Right?
Absolutely. From the volunteering on spring cleanups, fall cleanups, summer cleanups, to all the way up to donating, to the organization.
Resources, excellent.
Yep.
Thank you so much, Will. I personally, this is one of my parks that I would love to see, bring back to what it was, what it initially was, and I think it can be even more for our community. And we're really, really glad that you're been hired to lead the charge.
Well, thank you for having me.
Thanks.